as water. What is flowing? That is water. So water is always there in the river. So that truth is unchangeable. Because that is always existent, that is always, that water always continues to be there, unchangeably, therefore flow is being possible. So, river containing the water all the time is unchangeable, relatively unchangeable fact. Okay? It's a in other words, it's a fixed fact, fixed, that there is always water. No matter the water, nature of water always changing in one place, but still there is water. After all, basically there is water. Although the water of this portion next moment going away, changing, but further water coming. So water, basically water is always here. Okay, one portion of water going, being replaced by other portion of water, filled by other portion of water, but the very water is always there. That fact, that ever presence of the water in that flowing river is something fixed, something unchangeable. And with that unchangeable principle, I repeat, with that principle of unchangeable character, lot of changes going on, flowing, like what water I see, right at this moment, at this place of the river, next moment it's not the same water there anymore. It's gone, it's flown away. Okay? That's the dynamic conception of the flow. In a similar way, time also like that, time and space also like that, like water flow in the river. Space and time both are flowing together, being the manifestation of each other, complementing each other. One cannot be existing without other. So, time represents more feeling aspects. Time can be conceived more through feelings. Both. Time and space can be conceived more through feelings. And also by some higher experiences or realizations. Because as the nature of the time and space are very subtle, very fine kind, similarly, the very nature of our conception, very nature of our feelings, faculty of the feelings, conception also very fine. As the nature of time and space, very fine and subtle type, also the nature of our experiencing that time, space, feeling, also fine type. So, through feelings we can understand both of them.
We can understand
both of them, time and space, together. Because time and space are flowing forever, like holding hand to hand. I'm talking in a poetic way. Okay, in connection with each other, in relation, in inseparable relationship with each other, time and space are always flowing together from time immemorial, without a beginning and without an end. It began from a time point without beginning, Apparently I am talking in a paradoxical way, but it has to be understood more poetic sense, poetically. It began from a beginningless point, time point. It means it had no beginning. Okay? It started, time and space started from without beginning, without a beginning. And it is going to end without any end. In other words, it's going to flow eternally to the endlessness without any end. So that means eternal character, eternal unending character of the time and space. Also like eternal unending character of Krishna's energy. Because even science says all energies never die. Energies never die. It only changes from one into another. It continues to be transformed or transmuted from one into another. But basically, by essential nature, by very fundamental nature, energy never dies, okay, never destroyed. So we, as the Jiva souls, Krishna's marginal potency, also never die, being Krishna's energy. All Krishna's energies can never die. All existing and flowing eternally. It all started without a beginning, and there is no end to it. There is no end to its flow. So back to the point. So time is just one of the aspects of Krishna's energy, a subtle energy. In which slab, within which whole creation, the whole creation, that of birth, maintenance and sustenance, period, and annihilation, all being taken care of. I repeat, within this time space, the functions of birth and being born, and the maintenance of life, maintenance of the living, sustenance of the living for a while, and its dilution, annihilation or dissolution in the subtle energy, all are happening. So, back to the point, therefore, there is some similarities as well as great differences between the nature of our time conception and that of spiritual time conception, divine time conception. And again, it has to be finally understood through Achinta Bheda Bheda. Simultaneously inconceivable oneness and distinction. I repeat, Achinta Bheda Bheda principle. That of inconceivably simultaneous one and distinct character. I mean, as regards the nature of similarities and differences between our concept of time, this mundane conception of timing, and the times of the spiritual world divine. But we have to understand in the first place, Lord Krishna said, I am the time. In Bhagavad Gita he says, I am the time. So time is not any less important thing. Because of which time and space, maintaining our life, maintenance of our life, all our life activities are being possible. So that is a very, very important thing, very important part of the truth, part of Krishna, definitely. Therefore we should be very respectful. We should be very respectful to the time, knowing it's none other than a great aspect of Krishna's energy, wonderful aspect, wonderfully mysterious aspect of Krishna's potency and energy. Krishna says that I am the time, I am Mahakala. Everything is happening within me. Birth, maintenance and destruction. Birth, maintenance and annihilation or dissolution. All are happening within this time frame, within the range of my potency, and it's going on eternally, according to my desires. So, you should also be respectfully worshipping the time as an expansion of Krishna, so vital, so essential in our life. Even when we are going to cultivate, we are engaged in cultivating our life of Krishna consciousness, life of Radha Krishna consciousness. Time and space are always very important, so important. That has also got great contributions. See, on this mundane, worldly plane, in other words, on this worldly mundane plane, like everything else, the conception of time is also very limited and relative. There cannot be any absolute conception of the time and space on this mundane plane of conception about the same. I repeat, there cannot be any absolute, or in other words, there can be no absolute conception, holistic conception of the time or space on this limited plane of mundane conception, or on this limited mundane plane of the conception of the same. Cannot be. Because herein, all our conceptions of the time and space are affected by our relative ways of thinking and viewing, feeling about it. So, I'm talking of the real conception of the time. Although we have discovered some mechanical way of calculating the time, you may question the time given by the clock. The time represented by the clock is not really changing, it's the same time, more or less, all over the world. I mean, the way second going on, tick, 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 in this way, the way the second is calculated, a certain measurement of the time unit with certain fixed rhyming, first fixed rhyme and rhythm, meter of the time unit, tick, 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 like second. It is unchangeable. It is something like absolute. That time point, which is represented by second, tick, tick, So that is more or less same everywhere. We can say that. But you know, still, so more or less the time calculation is the same, not changing, unchangeable. Okay. But still, we often find certain gaps of timings, okay, as the months and years are flowing by. So therefore, what happens? So, in the astronomical analysis, in the space science, in the world of astronomical science and astronomical calculations, astronomical or astrological, calculations and all, we find, in spite of having certain fixed time unit calculations and all, but still it's bringing some differences, very subtle differences through the months and years. How is it being possible? Because, even that smallest fundamental time unit measurement as second, tick, 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 tick. Although it is the same time unit measurement, okay, every second, yet that also changes very subtle way. Its rhythm, its gap between 1 and 2 seconds, 3 seconds, the very gaps between 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds can be varied. The very rhythm and rhyme, okay, in the process of seconds, every second, can be also varying by very fine time units, like sub-second time units. Okay, if we can divide seconds into 100, when we divide 1 second into 100, 1,000, okay, 10,000, even 1 millionth, then the time point becomes so small and so fast, we cannot even imagine. We cannot directly conceive, but still, even that kind of fluctuation, even that smallest unit fluctuation, like 1 millionth of a second, 1 millionth of a second, or 1 billionth of a second, makes some difference in the time calculation. Because every moment, this rhythm, tick, 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 is not exactly the same. Every rhythmic moment of the time is not calculated exactly the same. Always little difference happening between one unit of rhythm between 2 seconds, another next unit of difference between another 2 seconds. Okay, so this rhythm of the time calculation cannot be absolutely accurate. For example, if you take a stopwatch, and you are dividing 1 second into 100. You try to apply the rhythm. Like every time you want to hit on 99 or 100, you cannot do it. It's so fast that as soon as you are going to touch the bottom, you are thinking you are having the same rhythm, but 1 or 2 difference. You cannot always hit on 99, cannot. Sometimes 100, sometimes 98, sometimes 101, 102, sometimes 99. If you determine, I must hit every time 100 on 100, every time. You cannot do it. Okay. It varies. Because of very subtle difference. Although you are thinking very fast and you are pressing the button to the point to stop on exactly 99 or 100. But every time you cannot do it, it's too fast. Either it's going to be 97 or going to be 102, 101, 102. Another time you got 98, but not every time 100. If you take a target like 100 or 99, you cannot always do it. It's too fast. Sometimes you are able to do either on 99 or 100. Why I am giving this example? Because so our time calculation, the way we feel about the time unit, every unit of the time, and the way we calculate every unit of the time is so dependent on our conception, factor of conceptualization. Therefore, and that differs from time to time, place to place, situation to situation. It is a very subtle difference. Therefore, we find a great difference in time calculations often come. In the whole astronomical system, the differences in time calculations often appear in the world of astronomical calculations, astrological calculations, universal time calculations, time calculations connected with the solar system, what to speak more of the galaxial system. Galaxial system, it will be finer and finer again. While we go to have our time calculations in multiversal, okay, according to multiversal galaxial system, it will be even finer and finer. Also, the concept of the timing also varies according to our individual conceptualization. While we are having fun, while we are having great fun, time flies like anything. Think about it. Time just went by so quickly. Cannot imagine. So same time seems to be, feels like very quick. But when we have a situation opposite to that, when we are faced with a situation opposite to any fun, like greatly dangerous situation, turmoil, the same time unit, or small time unit seems to be so long as it is getting lengthened. I am the same person, but the conception of the timing now greatly varying according to the situation of my feelings, situation of how I am feeling about the time. Okay. So one of the essential differences, vital differences between the nature of time flow on this mundane plane, between the nature of the time flows of this limited mundane plane and spiritual plane of perfection is that here on the mundane plane we find the time flow of mortal nature. Time flows of very temporary, temporary changing mortal nature. In other words, this mundane, on this limited mundane plane, on this plane of all relative limitations, time is also calculated and understood in a relatively limited time form. Cannot be understood in absolute form. Here time is flowing more with mortal characteristics. Like for example, once something is happening at the present moment, is happening at the present moment, as soon as I realize, no sooner I realize about it, that activity is past. While things are happening at the present, meaning the conception of the happening at the present moment of the time is actually the combination, is actually combining some part of its past and some portion of the future activity. Because right now what is happening, next moment it is past, and next moment something is coming up from the future, coming up from the womb of future. So it's a flowing concept, although we are thinking it's happening at the present moment, but everything happening even at the present moment also flowing. Because everything is flowing, therefore activities are possible. If nothing is flowing, no activity is possible. Everything would be stagnant and stopped and still. Because everything is of flowing nature, dynamic nature, therefore all activities are being possible. Otherwise, if the time flow stops, everything would stop. Everything would come to a stop and stillness. So that's how the time is flowing here. Okay, so here our conception of our present time is like marginal. It's a marginal situation, concept of the time. In one hand connecting with the past, in one hand it is directly related and connecting with the nearest past, on other hand it is directly connecting with the nearest future, future time, and flowing. Okay, when it is flowing means as soon as something is past, as soon as some of my activities, certain portion of my activity is done, means past, it became past. And then something new is coming from the womb of future. So our present activities are the combination of, very subtly combination of little past, little future, and little bit in between two. Little portion, very little subtle portion, just connected with the past, and some portion is like in the middle, like a neutral point, okay, connecting with the past and the newer thing coming from the future. So again the conception of our present activities is somewhat connected with the past, somewhat connected with the future, and in neutral, the exact present truth is connecting to both sides of the activities, nature of activity. Okay, certain, just nearest part of the past and nearest part of the future. That's how present activities are being constituted, being organized every moment
in material.
In material world. But now, In the spiritual world, same time concept is realized transcendentally, can be realized transcendentally. See, in the spiritual world, spiritual sky, on the plane of divine perfection, such as Krishna Loka, this changing concept, therefore I say there is some similarity also difference. Similarity and difference both are there together at the same time, simultaneously. So some portion of the activities, divine activities, I repeat, certain portions of all the divine pastimes and activities of Radha, Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Divine Truth, are that of changing nature, similar to what I have just explained, like what is found on the mundane plane also, similar nature. But whereas other portion, other aspects, other dynamics of the time concept is that of holistic stillness, fulfillment, unmoving character. Therefore, all the leelas of Krishna, all the leelas of the Supreme Absolute Divine Truth can be realized eternally at every time unit, every time moment. Although Leela is flowing, at the same time certain aspects of the Leela also flowing and changing, becoming manifest in newest way. Not of stagnant character. But at the same time, all those Leelas of the Supreme Lord already flowing also got a stagnant, still, ever fixed, ever unchangeable, unmoved character. Therefore it is called eternal Leela. Every point of the Leela is understood, realized to be of eternal nature, eternal, immortal nature, because it ever lives. Every point, every unit, every unit of the Radha Krishna Leela can be realized eternally, immortally, not like they are becoming past or coming up from the future. It is inconceivable. How it is happening, how it happens is factually inconceivable, incomprehensible, inexplicable. So, therefore Mahaprabhu said, you don't need to conceive, don't try to be conceiving some absolute character of the happenings, of the time, space, or character of the Leela of the Lord, since that is inconceivable in the first place. Why should we be trying to be conceiving something inconceivable again and again? You simply be knowing that that's the way it is happening, in an inconceivably simultaneous one and distinct character together, the unchangeable and eternal, I repeat, unchangeable and eternal, immortal characters of the time, space, to uphold, to maintain, sustain Radha Krishna Leela. Also, the dynamic, changing dynamically changing and flowing characteristics of the time and space to be promoting, maintaining, sustaining the same Radha Krishna Leela. Both are happening simultaneously, together. Both characters are there, manifesting simultaneously together, coexistent together, without contradicting each other. And how they are happening together at the same time is inconceivable. Don't try to conceive it. Don't try to conceive that absolute truth which is inconceivable in the first place. We can only have some idea. We can only try to have some kind of idea or a glimpse, potential ideas how it may happen. Because to us, difference and non-difference at the same time together, flowing, seems to be a bit paradoxical, self-contradictory. But it seems to be paradoxical, it all seems to be of paradoxical character, self-contradictory character, because of our limited thought process, because of the limitation of human thought process. Factually it is not paradoxical, but still it seems to be paradoxical to us because that's the way we are accustomed to think, either this or that. Both cannot be happening at the same time, non-differently and differently. It has to happen either this way or that way, otherwise it's self-contradictory. That's our thought process, that's our conceptual limits of ways of thinking. So to us which seems to be paradoxical, the absolute reality, the realization of the absolute reality, the absolute realizations about the absolute supreme reality, although felt, seems to us sometimes paradoxical way, but factually it is not. All the aspects of the supreme, all the aspects of the holistic realizations, absolute realization of the supreme, absolute divine truth are actually harmoniously coordinating, harmoniously coordinating with each other through wonderful, mysteriously wonderful nature of union, harmonious union. Never paradoxical, but to us it seems to be paradoxical because that's the way, limited way, very limited relative way of our thought process. That's why. So, that's how is the mystically wonderful difference between type conceptions of the divine world, plane of perfection, and this mundane world. Okay, now, no more question.
No question, just to check something, if I have understand, so we should consider all leelas, divine, couple, and spiritual leelas, we should accept as always the same and always fresh new.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At the same time. Coexisting.
Like a river.
Yes, they are coexisting together.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Because no part of the lila of divine couple is lost anywhere. Like we find on the mundane plane of existence, something past means it's almost lost. We cannot touch it again, we cannot be in that again, we cannot touch it again, we cannot feel it like we feel in the present. Its past means past, beyond our reach, beyond our direct connection, only some memory stays. But no objective. We cannot anymore have realistically subjective or objective experience of the past as we could have, as we had it in the present moment. So that's the difference, that makes the difference between present activity and past. Something past means something already beyond our control, beyond our hand, beyond our capacity to directly experience as like we experience at the present moment. Okay? And we also cannot relate to any activities coming from the future. Also similarly, we cannot relate to it because it has not yet surfaced. It has not yet manifested on my surface of the present time. So we also cannot relate to the future manifestations, future activities. But on the spiritual realm, on the divine plane of perfection, absolute divine plane of perfection, all the aspects and portions of Radha Krishna Leela, in other words, Leela of the Supreme Absolute Divine Truth, can be directly experienced and realized even though it became past. Some portion of it flown to the past. Okay? Or even though some portion of that yet going to manifest from the future. But the past and the portions of Radha Krishna Leela, the portions of the Leelas of Absolute Divine Truth can still be realized, experienced like happening at the present, which were already past and which are yet to come from the womb of the future timing. They can be directly experienced as if happening at the present. Okay? Simultaneously, besides its dynamic character, that of same Leela also manifesting in ever new to newer, newest way. Okay? Freshest way, newer, newest way. Both characters of the Leela of the Supreme Absolute Divine are flowing together, happening together. Okay? In wonderfully mystical dimensions. In different wonderfully mystical dimensions together as simultaneously one and distinct way. As with the character of simultaneous oneness and distinctions. In other words, with the simultaneous character, or let me put it this way, it will be better. With the character and nature of simultaneous one and distinct ways. Okay? And how that happens is still inconceivable a human brain. How it happens, I repeat, is completely inconceivable by limited human brain, limited capacity of human brain. But it happens. So that is the distinction. Clear? Clear? Yes.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Now you put your question. She is waiting to hear the answer of your question. It was being recorded, so put your question loudly. Tomorrow morning?
You can speak about this because it's one big argument, I think. No time to explain so much.
Of course, I will take another 1 hour
Yeah.
if I start.
Tomorrow morning you can develop this.
6 types of good servitors, good devotees. What you are saying? She wants tonight.
If not tomorrow morning, it's
For me it's okay. For me it's okay.
Now is it Arati time almost?
Now 1 hour.
Katha is always first.
Ha ha ha. But there will be late for Arati, no? Almost 7:30.
Yeah.
So Arati time. We should stop maybe after Arati and Parikrama.
Yeah.
We can have another session.
Okay. Okay.
For half an hour to 1 hour.
Okay. For us it's okay.
Okay.
So we cannot conceive with our brain, but we can believe with our heart. This is what is the truth about time, spiritual.
Yes. We cannot conceive by our intellectual capability. In other words, we cannot be conceiving by our limited intellectual capacity of human brain. It's true, but through feelings we can understand better.
Through faith also.
Through faith and heart's feelings, we can understand and realize much better way. Not through limited calculative ways of the human conceptions. Cannot. What?
He has one question too.
Now, related to the same topic,
È collegato a questo discorso?
No.
No, not correlated.
Atma Samiksha.
Atma Samiksha. There is another whole world. Self-analysis. Atma Samiksha. Self-examination. Self-analysis, self-testing. That will be another whole world. I can speak at least for 2 hours on that.
Si può parlare con
Dovete venire tutte alle 5.
Atma Samiksha means also world of self-realization in relation to God realization.
Sì, volevo sapere da lui
Wanted to know
qual era l'importanza nella vita devozionale
what
tutti i
importance,
devoti, per come applicare in modo corretto.
how to apply it in the correct mode, and how much is importance in the life of a devotee. What is the importance?
The importance of Atma Samiksha.
Yes, what is important?
Self-analysis, self-examination, self-considerations. In other words, called self-realizations. Atma Samiksha means.
Autorealizzazione.
It is of great importance,
Grande importanza.
so much importance. It is of so much importance, vital importance in the life of the cultivation of pure loving devotion to the Supreme, in relation to the loving service, our divine connections with the Supreme. All right then, Arati.